They were very brave, the Supreme Court, very brave, and they take a lot of hits because of it. It should be illegal what happens. You know, you have these guys like playing the ref, like the great Bobby Knight. These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices.
So I'm Dr. Brown, and this is Dr.
Sloan.
And we are eh-yah. I mean, let's just start where we are. This is appalling. This is absolutely appalling. I mean, let's just think about it. Our value, one of the things we value a lot as Americans is freedom. And what he's proposing is that for us to exercise our free to speech, that we would be likely to be arrested. That is anti-American. And that's not what we stand for. I mean, we as physicians especially should have our freedom to choose what's the best for our patients, to make sure people are healthy and safe. And that's not what 45 is proposing. He's actually proposing that even our criticism of courts that make decisions about our bodies and our freedoms and our rights is something that should be prosecuted. I mean, what do you think about that, Dr. Sloan?
Well, as a person that went to Texas Tech University under Bobby Knight and understanding the mentality of a coach and that push and what I say is right and what you say is wrong, and you're going to suffer the consequences if you don't listen to me, I think that is the wrong way to go about freedoms in the United States. And this does go back to our freedoms of freedom of speech, you know, freedom of our bodies, autonomy of our choices of what we do. Freedom is who we are as Americans. That's what people want to see and hear more than anything else, and know that that is not going away because of an election. So again, I am appalled. I know that you're appalled. America was horrified, but I think, again, this lends to who he is. Every time when we talk about what is going to be the catch, what is going to hit the news, number one, something that's going to be the shock value of saying you're going to take away people's freedoms is definitely that. And I think Americans should be shocked to the point where they show up at the polls and make sure that he is not the next or the repeat president.
And so, you know, we kind of hinted at it, but let's talk about freedoms. Of course, there's the freedom to say what you want to say. There's the freedom to control what happens with your body. There's the freedom to love who you want to love. There's the freedom to read the books that you'd like to read. You know, one thing that really seems to be stressed by the campaign of recent is the freedom for women to choose what happens over their body and what happens when we as women are not able to do that. Let's check out this clip about what happens to freedom under the 45 administration.
And we all know how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court, the Court of Thurgood and RBG, with the intention that they would overturn the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as he intended, they did. And now more than 20 states have Trump abortion bans. Extremists that have passed laws that criminalize healthcare providers, doctors, and nurses, and punish women. In 2 states of those states, they provide for prison for life. Prison for life for healthcare providers for simply providing reproductive care, the care they so earnestly and rightly believe must be delivered.
So this goes back to the whole thing of lack of freedoms. We're talking about 2 different types of lack of freedom. One is about your bodily freedom, to be able to take care of yourself and do your autonomy of your bodily parts. The second freedom here, we're talking about freedom of choice of your health care. And specifically as a physician, this is very bothersome because, as you know, Dr. Brown and I have discussed before, if this is taken away and we are going to go to jail because we are doing what we're taught and what we're supposed to do is do no harm. We're not trying to do harm, but waiting idly by until someone, like the next clip we're going to talk about, someone dies. That's on our watch. That's a whole nother ballgame. And so freedom is so important in this, not just because of our autonomy, but because of our healthcare. Let's roll that clip.
Let's break that down. Let's break that down. So we're saying that we're going to create public policy that says that a doctor, a healthcare provider, will only kick in to give the care that somebody needs if they're about to die. Think about what we are saying right now. You're saying that good policy, logical policy, moral policy, humane policy is about saying that a healthcare provider will only start providing that care when you're about to die? And so Amber waited 20 hours. 20 hours. Excruciating hours. Until finally she was in enough physical distress that her doctors thought they would be okay to treat her. But it was too late. She died of sepsis. And her last words to her mother, which her mother, as you know, tears up and cries every time she speaks it. Last words to her mother, promise me you'll take care of my son.
It's a tearjerker. And Dr. Brown, you're probably more level-headed, I should say, to respond to this, because this is not just inhumane. This should be unconstitutional for us to be at this point in history where doctors can't make choices and or to help their patients. What are your thoughts?
You know, when you start medical school, we have our white coat ceremony and you put your white coat on, right? And we state the Hippocratic Oath. And we also say that we're pledging to first do no harm. Ultimately, that's why we are sacrificing decades of our lives to train, to learn how to take care of people, is to first do no harm. And we read a lot and we go to conferences. We do all of these things so that we are the most up to date on the ways to keep our patients healthy and safe. So for the government to come into our exam rooms, to come into our operating rooms and really restrict when we're able to treat our patients is just incredibly frustrating. Not just frustrating, it's dangerous. And I would venture to say it's unconstitutional. You know, if let's just take a step back here. Let's look at the Dobbs decision, which Dr. Sloan will speak about in a few moments. And then let's take a look at the states that no longer allow women reproductive rights. I mean, it's 24 states. 24 states in our United States have enacted abortion bans. So that means in these states that are listed that your physician cannot abide to first do no harm. They must wait until you are deathly ill and hope that we have the tools with medicine to bring you back from the brink of death, because we don't have this tool in our toolbox to take care of women who need an abortion, a termination. I mean, Dr. Sloan, can you talk a little bit about Dobbs and where we are as physicians?
I stood in Houston, downtown, one of the courts, when Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, much respect as she is now gone, as this decision came out, and Dobbs versus Jackson literally tore away our constitutional rights as women, as patients, as human beings to decide what we do with our bodies. And then the courts further allowing states to decide what will happen to those physicians, to the point where they put bounties on people's heads if anyone was to help a patient get an abortion and these kind of things. And so what it led to was a fear in the United States. And that fear has now caused what I say almost a repercussion of retaliation, if you will. In Politico recently, there was an article that basically talked about how physicians are now flooding to the polls. We are now voting more, as well as have flipped from being previously in prior to 2016, more Republicans, positions were to now recently we're more democratic. And that is because of the political change in the landscape of politics in America today. Not only that, the numbers for the financial change of what doctors are now contributing to PACs and donating for different campaign funds and that kind of thing has also, if not tripled, almost quadrupled in respect for Democrats. So doctors are no longer saying we're just going to sit idly by in our white coat in our offices. It's like now it's basically put up or shut up. And we're basically saying we're done. We're going to make sure that our politics are going to be for our patients as well as the physicians and put the power back in the hands of the providers and their patients and not politicians. Yeah, this is sad. It's a sad time in America.
It really is. And coming from a little bit of a selfish standpoint, Dr. Sloan, as a New Yorker, when all of these, this war on women's reproductive rights, often I was thinking, well, if you stay in the Northeast or you stay in this state or you stay in that state, then it really it impacts you. But also that the women in those states that have the stronger restrictions can go to the states that are more lenient. But, when we think about Project 2025, they want less freedom overall, right? So Donald Trump continues to act as if he doesn't know what Project 2025 is. Meanwhile, multiple members of his advisory team administration have written this policy document. And Project 2025 wants to end medication abortions in the United States. 63% of abortions in the United States are medical abortions, meaning that you don't have a surgical procedure. You take a pill and you expel the fetus. And their goal here is to revoke FDA approval of the medication. And the medication is not just used for abortions, right? It's used for other things within women's reproductive health. They want to prevent hospitals from allowing life-sparing and emergency care to pregnant women, just like Amber Thurman. And I believe in Georgia, they found that it was too late. They waited too long. There was the ability to save this woman's life, and they did not. And the part that really, really is scary is that in Project 2025, there's the ability to prosecute individuals for shipping and transporting abortion pills and supplies. So thinking back to, if you go to a blue state, you can get your pills and then come back. No. The person that provides you your medication, the person that provides the supplies can be prosecuted and can go to jail for decades. When you think about it, there's already a shortage of physicians in the United States, particularly OBGYNs and those that provide women's reproductive care. And, according to the AAMC, there are less medical students pursuing residency, so training, in these states that have these 24 states that have a greater restriction on abortion. So this is impacting people's access to healthcare, people's access to staying safe and healthy. And that is not freedom to me. That's not freedom at all.
I think you just hit on a great point, though. Dr. Brown, you hit on a great point of training. People don't realize the fact that we've come out of an era of COVID where we had medical students and residents and doctors that were very limited, basically for almost 2 years of their training. And so those people are now in practice. And with these restrictions, and specifically in certain states, the American Medical Association and so many other governing bodies are recognizing not just the shortage of physicians, the problems with training, but now you have a generation of doctors, specifically OB-GYN, that would not know how to do this life sustaining and or saving type of procedure in the event that some patient does need an abortion, let alone provide the abortions. So we now are missing some basic medical care training because of political prowess, if you will, and the constitutional amendment that is now imposing danger on women's lives. And so we are in very tumultuous times. We are in a time in which the only thing that's going to change is the power of your vote. And so as we move into this last 45 days of getting ready to vote, and some states are already voting, Dr. Brown and myself are pushing you, pleading with you, if nothing else, to make sure that you are registered to vote, to make sure that you don't miss that deadline. Check your registration to make sure you know where you're registered to vote and go vote. But more than anything else, please vote early, because we know the shenanigans that are going to happen after November 5th, and that Georgia has already implemented that they're going to be counting ballots by hand instead of electronically. So therefore, we may not, at the stroke of midnight, have a new president-elect. We will, Kamala Harris. However, they're going to try everything they can. So please register to vote. Make sure that you go vote early and take someone with you.
Yeah, exactly, Dr. Sloan. You have to have a plan, particularly in these red states, like the state that Dr. Sloan's in Texas or Florida or Georgia. There is an active movement to remove people from the voting polls. So from the voting rolls, rather. So it's really incumbent upon each of you. Part of your right to vote is going onto that website and making sure that you still are on the roll to be able to vote. Because there's a lot of shenanigans, and we need every single vote, and particularly the vote in those states that are acting and pushing so hard to restrict the right to vote. So we're within 45 days of this election, and
Let's go.
Because when we fight, we win. So we will
win.
And we'll see you next time on the MeidasTouch Network and eh-yah. Thank you.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.